Welcome everybody to today's webinar, Swimming with the Sharks Without Being Eaten Alive, Analyzing Your Political Landscape, presented by Vijay Verma. Vijay is an internationally renowned speaker and a best-selling author. He's authored a 3-volume series on the human aspects of project management that were published by PMI, which include organizing projects for success, human resource skills for the project manager, and managing the project teams. These books have sold more copies than any other project management book in the world, second only to PMI's Guide to the Project Management Body of Knowledge, the PMBOK Guide. Vijay received the 2009 PMI Fellow Award, one of PMI's highest and most prestigious awards, the 1999 David I. Cleland Project Management Literature Award for his book Managing the Project Team, and the 1999 PMI Distinguished Contribution Award for his sustained and significant contributions to the project management profession. Recently in 2020, the Project Management Association of Canada, one of the sponsors of this event, awarded Vijay its highest honor as a Fellow of the Project Management Association of Canada. Vijay, welcome to the call. We're very excited to have you on this presentation. We're delighted to hear what you have to say. Now, everybody on the call, please, as Vijay goes through his presentation, type your questions into the chat window or the questions window, the questions tab. Please type them in if you're on the web interface so that we can capture them as we go, and then we will have Vijay address the questions at the end. Vijay, take it away.
Thank you very much, Kevin. Good morning, everybody. I think, or good afternoon, or wherever I think, depending on the time zones, wherever you are. And the title for today's presentation is, they can see my slides, right? I should.
Everything is fine. Please continue.
So the title of my slide today is Analyzing Project Political Landscape, Swimming with Sharks Without Being Eaten Alive. The reason I chose this topic, because most of us as project managers sometimes ignore politics or are not very, very good at managing politics. And I think that's what we're going to be talking about, swimming with sharks without being eaten alive. And I think the words will become clearer to you as I go through the presentation. This is me. I think Kevin has talked a little bit, quite a bit, and a flattery introduction that he has given about me. So let's just talk a little bit about questions and issues about politics in project management. And these are the questions that I've come across whenever I've taught my workshops with many, many participants. And that is first of all, I think we all have to understand and realize that politics are inevitable in project environments. Whether we like it or we don't like it, politics are going to be there. Therefore, ignoring the external and internal politics surrounding your projects can be detrimental. So we as project managers cannot afford to ignore the politics or really avoid the politics, because that's really going to have a lot of problem in managing our projects. So, and you must analyze your political landscape, because I understand the politics are there, but then you will say, ask a question, well, who is what and what do they do? Why should I really worry about all of them? So you must analyze your political landscape and identify the positions of stakeholders regarding their political behavior. And here, I'm going to talk about 3 political positions that people take regarding their political behavior. And they will be naives, sharks, and politically sensible. And that's where the title of the webinar comes in, Swimming with Sharks Without Being Eaten Alive. So what do you do if you have to deal with too many sharks? That's a question that I often face in my seminars on politics, that if you have too many sharks in your organization or in your project environment, what do you do? And that is what you should do is, that is the kind of webinar that I'm going to focus on. And I'm really hopeful that this webinar today will give you some insights and some ideas and some tips that you can take away right away and use it at your workplaces in order to manage politics. So the learning objectives for today is I will talk a little bit about the dynamics and complexity of power and politics. These two are very highly interrelated. You cannot really deal with politics successfully if you do not have power. But just having power is not good enough. What you need to know is how to use it effectively so that you don't get clogged. Okay, so that's very, very important. Then we'll talk about analyzing the political landscape in your organization. And these are the three positions that I said that we will be talking about regarding the political behavior. Naïves, sharks, and politically sensible. So I will talk about each three of them in a little bit more details and then talk about various scenarios as well. And what we have to do when we talk about these three positions is understand the attitudes of each of them or viewpoints about politics and their intentions to deal with politics. How do they tend to deal with politics? And what are the strategies they use in managing their people and their projects? I think that's very, very important. And purpose and the objective here is to become politically sensible by increasing your power and the circle of influence. So more on organizational politics. So politics actually are in general of two types: positive politics and the negative politics. Negative politics is I can go into more details later on when we have time, but the negative politics is finger pointing, blaming each other, staying in as functional silos, and all those kind of things. And so negative politics focuses on I. How do I get ahead? And the idea here is even at the cost of others. Whereas the positive politics, emphasis there is on we. How do we deal with each other effectively? So when we talk about politics, and there's too much politics, my idea when I wrote this book, which was actually published by Kevin's company in June 2018, The Art of Positive Politics, a key to delivering successful projects. The idea there was that if you have politics, you cannot ignore it, you cannot avoid it, then how do you actually deal with the thing? So what I'm really interested in is just at least minimizing the negative impact of politics, nothing else. And that I'm saying is you do that by creating positive politics. And what is positive politics is the 10 commandments that I have come through. We may not have time to deal with that here. And the idea here is how do you create a culture of more collaboration, teamwork, and synergy? So why do we have organizational politics? I think we all have reasons. Some issues are related to project management. Some issues are related to behavioral issues that people are just there to satisfy their egos and meet their own selfish interests and so on. Mergers, acquisitions, they create a lot of politics because a lot of restructuring happens when that goes on. Types of political behaviors. How do you manage political behaviors? Who engages in negative politics? There's a special breed of people who really try to gain power by unfair means and so on. So there is a special breed of people who really engage in negative politics. And the idea is to identify those people or know at least a little bit about them so that you can deal it accordingly. And these are the three positions regarding the political behaviors we talked about: naïves, sharks, and politically sensible. Okay? And what we're going to talk about is what are their attitudes of each of them, what are their intentions to deal with politics, and what are the strategies. So when we talk about that, let's talk a little bit about what do project managers say about politics. So when I have done seminars on this topic, I always ask these questions. What do you think about politics? And the defendable answers that I've gotten from many, many project managers is politics are hidden and personal agendas. Politics are bad. They shouldn't even be there. It's unpleasant. And some people say, well, politics is a way of life. It is an unspoken rule of getting things done. Some people say politics is all about power struggles, turf wars, empire building. But on the other side, as I said, politics are unspoken rules, unspoken ways to get things done. But also politics is all about relationships, who you know and how well you know. But the politics is about getting what you want to get things done by working through others. So these are just different views about politics that we come across from many people. So let's talk a little bit about what do you do when you are swimming in a pond with sharks. So here I have shown an organizational pond, if you want to call it that way. And these are the three positions people take regarding their political behaviors. Either they are naives, sharks, and politically sensible. And I try to take a see theme in that one. So the sharks are sharks, politically sensible are dolphins, and naives are flounders. If you look into the details, the flounders are the kind of fish who stay at the bottom of the ocean. They are more or less born with their eyes closed. They are very slow. And that is really what the naives are. It's not that they're slow in working, but when I say their eyes are closed, means that they pay little attention of what's going on around in the organization, and they are not as much aware of the politics and undercurrents going related to that. Sharks are the people who are just have they're self-centered, they're selfish, they only want to get things whatever they want. And what I really want you to become after this webinar, stop being naive, don't become sharks, and learn to be politically sensible, which is like dolphins. Very agile, very fast, very quick, and they're able to anticipate risks and then take actions in order to make sure that they can really mitigate those risks. So that is what we're going to talk about in more details. We can come back to that one depending upon your chat questions as well. No worries. So let's talk about these three positions that people take regarding their political behavior. Naïves, flounders. The viewpoint about politics for them is that politics are bad, negative. It's a waste of time, it's unpleasant, and very undesirable. So they really would say, I would like politics to disappear. So because they have these views about politics, they tend to deal with politics, they ignore politics and avoid politics, and they hope they will disappear. And let me just tell you that politics will not disappear. We will disappear, not the politics. And they condemn politics, but that does not help. How do they manage their people and their projects? They take some kind, even somewhat of a pride in seeing themselves as direct and straight shooters. They say that, look, I'm a straightforward person and I tell everything as it is. There's nothing wrong in that. It's a good idea to be honest and tell things as it is, but you still have to be careful how it is being interpreted by some people, and especially by sharks. They trust their stakeholders too readily. Nothing wrong. You must trust people, but you have to be careful if some people are saying something else and they mean something else, and then you trust in them too much. So just be careful, that's all. They over-depend on processes, tools, and methodology. They just think if something has really been done with the process, through the computer, and that's what the things are, they over-depend on that one. Sometimes those things are not true, okay? And not true only in the sense that you have to understand the meanings and interpretations behind all of those things, and analyze and justify their projects only in tangible costs and benefits. For example, politically sensible people or leaders, as opposed to even managers, will invest enough time and effort to empower their people, to expand the potential of their people. So in the long run, you get lots of intangible benefits because you have increased the potential of your team members, but it is not tangible. And that's what they only talk about, tangible things. Let's talk a little bit about sharks. So sharks their viewpoint on politics is that politics can be used for self-serving purposes. That's what they think that I'm going to do. That's what they use. And they say politics are okay to use for self-gains. And their aim is to just win in political games. How do they deal with politics? They use politics to advance their interests and agenda. They may be less interested, or their primary interest is on themselves. They use politics to disassociate themselves when projects are in trouble. Now, that's a big thing. We all deal with projects. We all face many, many challenges. And when the projects start getting in trouble, they kind of try to disassociate themselves. Well, I have nothing to do with it. I am not really involved in it too much, and so on. And they use politics to deflect accountability. It's not me, it is somebody else's task. And they use politics for self-promotion and get information and opinion from others, which is nothing wrong in that, but they don't share their opinions and information with others that readily, but they're only interested in getting the information that they can use to advance themselves. What approaches do they use in managing their people and their project? The biggest thing is they manipulate information and they manipulate people. They twist information and ideas to their advantage. They put a different spin. They're excellent spin doctors. Whatever you say, they'll just put a different spin on it so that it looks good from an organizational point of view. They will take credit for others' good ideas so that they can be seen as stars. They feel okay in stealing ideas. They flatter power brokers at the senior management levels to get what they want. Talking badly about others, that's a little bit too much. And they dissociate themselves, as I said before, from the project failures and problems. They blame others, deflect accountability, extract useful information and opinion from others, and they withhold information. What I talk about when we talk about the positive politics, one of the big thing in that one is share information, because the more you share, the more you get. But they try to withhold information as a way of increasing their power. So we said before, after this webinar, I like you to stop being naive, not become sharks. So let's understand how to become politically sensible. Who are those dolphins? Actually, I call them even ninja dolphins, if you're a really, really good politically sensible person. And we'll talk about their viewpoints, how they deal with politics, and what are the main approaches they use in managing their people and their projects. So the politically sensible people, dolphins, think politics is a part of life. Whether we like it or we don't, they're very important and necessary to get things done. And they actually are a natural way to deal with people, because most people, one of the simple truths of life is everybody is looking for what's in it for me. So the politically sensible people will address this question in a way, what's in it for them? And I think when you see the things from that perspective and then do the things, I think it may be very easy to get the cooperation from people. So how do they deal with politics? They use politics to advance and help meet primarily organizational goals and strategies, and then department goals. So the highest priority is the organizational goals, and then only they'll worry about the department goals. But when they do that in this process, they really, really understand very well what the sequence of priorities has to be and what are the things they need to focus on. Get into that a little bit. So what I really mean by understand the sequence of priorities, this is this. So that means if you look at that, so politically sensible people use politics to further first organizational strategies and goals, then department goals, because if they are really working in a matrix organization and they're assigned to a project, so after the project is finished, they have to go back to their home department before they get assigned to another project and so on, right? So that's why they worry about the department goals as well, but the top priority is the organizational strategies and goals. And then comes the project goals, and then the personal goals. If you look at that, sharks just stay at the personal goals level. Naïves are at the project goals level. Means they always worry about my project. So they're always asking for more and more resources, otherwise my project will fall behind. Okay? Whereas the politically sensible people are in this range, so they don't focus more on project goals, they only focus on these two things. And what they really need to talk about the project is they're very, very good in aligning their project goals and benefits to the organizational strategies first and then to department goals. So they're very good, they're very articulate in looking at the project benefits, and instead of talking about their project, they always are aligning it to how does my project help meet organizational goals. If I am stuck and I am looking for and I'm requesting one more programmer, they come up with full justification how by adding one programmer to their project will really advance the project to meet the organizational goals and strategies faster and with a better quality. So how do the politically sensible people, what is their approach in managing their people and their projects? Well, they increase their informal power. And they use power mostly in an informal way by communicating effectively. We all know there are two types of power, formal and informal. Formal power is what you're given based upon your status in the organizational chart. And the informal power is what you earn based upon your knowledge, experience, and expertise. So they try to increase their informal powers. And what are those informal powers? Let me just give you some idea on those as well. These are the informal powers. Legitimate power, reward power, courtship power, referent power, expert power, information power, network power, and persuasion power. And what are they? You can see that only the three first powers, legitimate power, is formal, and the reward power and coercive power comes with it, and the rest of the powers are all informal. So they focus on really working on their and using their informal powers. And they also use their power mostly in an informal way, because if you use your power mostly in a formal way, you are seen as a more of an authoritative person or authoritarian leader, and I think that is really not what helps you gain or maintain your power to be able to deal with politics effectively. They expand their network. And when they expand their network, it's not just in terms of quantity of people they know, but the quality. And the way to do that is two techniques of expanding your network. One is nurturing, and another one is feeding the network. Nurturing the network to make sure that network is alive. You are stay in touch with those people, and feeding the network means that you should be the first one willing to help the people. First means that you must make deposits in those accounts, network account, so otherwise your checks will bounce. And most of the time, my experience has been that if you are the kind of person who is very willing to help people, then when you need help, it doesn't have to be the same people, that you have to expect the help from, but I'm sure somebody will come out there to help you as well. And they become enthusiastic contributors, because in an organization, there are lots of things which don't go according to plans. So they are right there and say, I can help. I will be happy to do this thing if it is really in the interest of the organization. And that is really how they get some more brownie points from the senior management as well. And they have good champions. I think champions is something that we really should understand, because that's a very, very important thing. And they help others build their political capital. When I talk about champions here in the context of politics, really I mean is that the champions are supposed to play two key roles effectively. And the roles are, they believe in my project and want me to succeed. And the second one is that they have enough organizational clout and influencing abilities to make things happen in my favor. As simple as that. And most of the time, if you do not have a good champion for your project, you are going to run into a lot of problems. The interesting thing is that if you go through PMBOK, and I was involved in writing the 4th edition of the PMBOK, where I did add this word champion, because otherwise the closest word in the project management body of knowledge used to be is a sponsor. And a sponsor may or may not be a good champion in the context that we're talking about, means helping and solving your problems. And they also help team members increase their informal power. It's not only that they increase their own informal power, they help team members increase their information power, network power, expert power by sending them to training and so on, and teaching them and coaching them how to really how to persuade people. So really remember that they say that there are three things happen in the corporate world. People get hired based on their technical skills. People get promoted based upon their human skills or people skills. And people get fired due to the lack of leadership skills. So we could be hired based upon our technical skills in project management, but it's the people skills which really make you promote. And in the people skills is really how to gain power and how to use your power. But the leaders make sure that they develop some leadership skills. So you can develop people skills. So you come with the technical skills. You can help increase their human skills or political people skills by sending them to the training for seminars like this as well. And for the leadership is mostly by coaching and mentoring, because people get fired due to the lack of leadership skills. So I think that is really what is very important, because as a project manager, you shine if your team makes you shine. And that is why it is very important to make sure that the informal power of all of your team members increases. Then you have more power as a package as well, because you are dependent on your team. Okay, so that's why they say when it comes to taking a credit, give it to your team. When it comes to taking a blame, take it upon yourself. So you shine only if your team makes you shine. I think that's a very, very important thing to remember. Okay. So I think this is really what I wanted to say about politically sensible people. And what you need to understand, that what you want to do, or the politically sensible people will do, is try to create positive politics. And let me just emphasize a little bit about what is positive politics. I will not go into the details of everything, but this is really what are those 10 commandments. Develop organizational strategies and goals. We all know that we possibly have them, but most of the time we have them on the website and everything else. But what I'm really saying here for the senior management or for the project leader is to make sure that those are established, they are communicated well, and you take proper steps to make sure that you gain their buy-in. And that means that you, first of all, involve them actively, so they participate. in making a plan or a 5-year plan and so on. Then you give them enough time to comment on that one and to get their feedback. And basically the idea there is to get agreement. And when you get agreement, to achieve this process of buy-in, so basically from participation, which has to be genuine, then their agreements, and agreements will have a higher probability of being met or being carried through if they meet 3 conditions. And they are: the agreements made has to be free from any fear, threat, or coercion. Agreements have to be reasonable, and there has to be a meeting of minds, means mutual understanding. So after, when you're trying to gain buy-in, people may say, after giving their comments and everything, what you really want to gain is, at least people will say that it may not be exactly what I will do, but I will certainly support it. So I may not 100% agree with it, but I'll 100% support it. That's what you kind of things you want. And encouraging sharing of information, because it's one of the information is one of the informal power, and the more you share, the more you get. And providing proper support and training, I think, is very, very important. Okay, and also embracing cultural diversity. We have a lot of cultural diversity in our organization. It's very important, rather than getting hung up on the cultural differences, we need to accept the cultural differences and capitalize on those cultural differences. And that is really what is very, very important for us. So let me just talk about some of the quotes that I came across about the political positions. Like Robert Louis Stevenson said, politics is perhaps the only profession for which no preparation is thought necessary. And that is really how Naïves thinks. They don't worry about it. I don't need to learn about the politics. I can just go in there and wing it. And Robin Sharma, I like this quote very much. That people who hurt others have themselves been hurt. People who do not love themselves cannot show love to others, and people who do not have any self-respect have no idea how to give respect to others. And I like the one that politically sensible people should focus on. Satisfaction lies in the effort, not in the attainment. So it's not necessarily that I have become politically the best, but the important thing is to start learning, put in your effort. And one of the things is, in this webinar, we talked about how to analyze the political landscape. So invest some effort and time into that one, because once you put your full effort, you are likely to get the full victory as well. Okay? So I think that is the things which are very, very important. And we need to understand also, why do we have politics? I think that's, so what I really talked about is, if I can go back to the learning objectives. So we have talked about the complex dynamics and complexity of power and politics. Power and politics are interrelated. If you do not have enough power, you will not be able to manage or deal with politics. But when we talk about power, there are 2 things. A, you have to have power, and you have to know how to use it effectively. About the power, the more power you have and you know how to use it effectively, better you are able to get the job done. And now, relating power and politics, actually what politics is about seeking power. And that's what I talk about in my workshop as well, seeking power, and then seeking power, acquiring power, and maintaining power. And maintaining power really comes about how you use your politics most effectively. Okay, so I think, and then we talked about the 3 political positions regarding the political behaviors, and which are the naive, sharks, and politically sensible. And my suggestion is, stop being naive, don't become sharks, and learn to be politically sensible by using the techniques that we talked about, and understand the attitude and intentions of each of them, and become politically sensible. That gives by increasing your power and the circle of influence. So I just wanted to share with you, actually there will be some questions I'm sure later on as well, that these are some more webinars that I'll be giving, which are organized by Procept Associates. This is the first one that we are talking about, March 24th, Analyze Your Political Landscape. Then on April 21st, we'll be managing a multi-generational workforce, because we all are realizing it now that there is a multi-generational workforce. There's more and more millennials are coming into the workforce, and some of us who are baby boomers find challenges in dealing with millennials because they have a different way of thinking. Their priorities are different. They have a different way of communicating, which we may not agree with, but that's the way it is. So it is very important when you're really working, baby boomers, millennials, and next generation working together, how do you really achieve cohesiveness and make the high performance teams? And then in May, we'll have a manager's guide to developing trust and synergy, because I really believe trust and synergy are both very, very important in getting things done. And then creating self-motivated project team, which is on June 23rd. And in September, there's nothing in July and August, the summer months. And then we will have a leader or a manager, the art of balancing both to achieve success. And we have some other topics that we're discussing about. And then no decision has been made about the dates, but we'll think about it. And we may put these topics as well. So if you have some chance and you look at these topics, you can just contact Procept Associates, Kevin, and show your interest. And then we'll try to develop these webinars as well and schedule them. All of these webinars can also be presented as a half-day to one-day workshop. And if you are interested, please contact Procept Associates to organize these workshops, and we'll be more than happy to meet all your requirements as an organization as far as the dates are concerned and the contents are concerned. Okay, and the other seminars I have that I also give on behalf of Procept Associates, most of them, is the Leadership, Power, Influence, and Politics. And this is the seminar, the next one, Power, Influence, and Politics, which is a 2-day seminar that I've also given for PMI for many, many years. And this can be split into 2 one-day workshops. First one is the Art of Positive Politics, and the other one is the Art of Influencing Without Authority. And the leader or a manager, Negotiating with Confidence. So some of these titles that you saw were also there in the webinars as well. That's what we are trying to do. And if you have any interest in any of those things, please contact Kevin at Procept Associates, and he'll be more than happy to find out how we can really work together with you and provide the type of information that your managers or project managers and supervisors need. So I think I could stop here, and I'll be happy to answer any questions. I think, Kevin, you can look at those ones, any questions that you have. If you would please just read it to me, and I'll be more than happy to answer those questions.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Vijay. Very enlightening presentation. Okay, everybody, now's your time to enter your questions into the chat window or the questions window. Go ahead and type them there. While we're waiting for those questions to come up, I just wanted to note that today's presentation was sponsored by the Project Management Association of Canada and IPMA Young Crew Canada. IPMA Young Crew Canada, which is an organization for project managers or those wanting to become project managers who are 35 years of age or under. So it's the youth wing of the Project Management Association of Canada, as well as Procept Associates. Our next free webinar in this series is on April 7th. April 7th at noon Eastern time. It's Megatrends 2021, PMI's Vision of the Future, and that'll be presented by Bill Richardson. On April 15th coming up, we have conducting daily, effective daily stand-up meetings, and so on. We have usually one every second week throughout the year, as well as additional ones in the evenings. Occasionally in the evenings, we've scattered some as well. So again, April 7th, Megatrends 2021, PMI's Vision of the Future. That's the next webinar in this series. Okay, we do have a question. Vijay,
Yes.
somebody asked somebody messaged me in the chat window privately, why do dolphins need informal power?
That's a very good question. Very good questions. Actually, whenever you try to become politically sensible, you should focus on your informal powers because, and let me just list those powers for you again so that we remember them. These were the powers. So let's forget about the first three powers because that's all formal. All these things are informal powers because if you look at these informal powers, there are four main advantages of informal power. The first one is no one can take that away from you. Even when you change the department, change the company, change the organization, nobody can take your expert power away. You know what you know. Nobody can take your relationships away, network power and the persuasion power. And the second one is that you can start working on increasing it right away. So you don't have to wait to be promoted when you have your own budget so that you can go and get some training and so on. If you're really after your expert power, and these days especially, as Kevin pointed out, there are so many free webinars, there are so many books that we can read and so on. So if we are interested in becoming more of a leader, we can read those things on our own. Third advantage of informal power is the more you share, the more you get. And we all know the power of network power in that context. Expert power, the more we share, the more we get. And the fourth one, which is really a very powerful advantage, and that is that if you have a strong foundation of informal power, means that you know how to have some leadership skills, expert power, information power, network power, persuasion power, and you have all five of them. So if you have a strong base of informal power, then you have a higher probability of being chosen to get formal power. For example, if there is a position available as a PMO leader, as a PMO director, and so on, then the senior management, when they're intelligent, they will be looking for people who have a strong base of these things. And that's very important. So it makes you a better candidate for a formal power. And when you get the power, when you get promoted that way, you also get an instant cooperation from people. Because people will come out to say, Vijay, I'm glad you got that promotion because I think you really deserve it. And when you get that kind of feelings from people, then you get their instant cooperation as well. So 4 advantages of informal power. No one can take that away from you. You can start working on increasing it right away. The more you share, the more you get. And a good foundation of informal power leads you the possibility of getting formal power and the promotions. I hope that answered the question.
I have personally a follow-up on that. So looking at those 3 sources of formal power, I could see those as reasons why you would not like a person if they use formal power. I feel coerced. I feel like they're withholding rewards. They're trying to force me to do something. But when people use informal power with me, I'm more likely to like them or get along with them. With one exception, persuasion. I might feel if they're using persuasion on me that I'm being manipulated, and that might make me suspicious. How does persuasion power different, or how can that be a positive power if I feel when people are trying to persuade me, I sense it, I feel manipulated and I get resistant?
So good, very good question. Very, very good question. I think you have to understand a little bit more about the persuasion power. When I am talking about persuasion power, I am talking about ability to enhance trust and agreement. And when you are talking about a manager using legitimate power, holding back the rewards and so on, so they're not actually persuading you, they are forcing you. They're imposing their decision on you. And I believe, and persuading means that somebody is so good that they create a feeling in you that you would want to do the things on your own, not that you have to do the things. So there's a difference in that. So my component of persuasion power means that you create an atmosphere or a feeling in people that they would want to do things on their own. Okay, not being imposed. Because whenever you have to do things, you do not put your 100% heart into it. And most of the time, the quality is not that good because that means compliance, not commitment. So you get what you want, what you ask for exactly, but not anything more than that. And when your people are persuaded in the way that I'm talking about, which is really using your ability to enhance trust and agreement and all those kind of things, then you are really getting their commitment. So the difference is between going after compliance or going after commitment. Does that answer your question, Kevin?
Yeah, thank you very much. That was very helpful. We have another question here.
Yeah.
What it says, what do you mean by champion?
That's a very good thing. Champion, I just said that there are two key roles that the champions are supposed to play. One, they're interested in your project once you succeed. And the second, which is more important to me from politics point of view, is that they have enough organizational clout, which means the positional power, but also the influencing abilities, which means the informal side of it, to be able to make things happen in your favor. And I think that is that's very, very important. And let me just go back to this swimming in pond without being eaten alive. So the champions are generally, so first position is to understand at what position the champions should be. And that actually depends upon the complexity of your project. And let me just try to point out to you what I really mean by the complexity of the project. So let's take this example, for example. In other words, the question here is the issue that we're asking ourselves: at what positional power, where the status of the organization chart of my champion should be to be able to really help me. And that depends upon the complexity of the project. When I talk about the complexity of the project, low, medium, and high, in simple words, I don't mean how big is the budget or how many people there are, but what it really means is how many departments it crosses to get things done. Because every department has their own way of doing things. And when you have to cross many, many departments, the things become more complicated. So if you have a project manager B with a kind of this medium complexity, then you need a champion somewhat at this minimum level. If you have a champion only at this level, the shark will eat up the champion as well as you. But when you have a very high complex project, even a champion at this level will certainly not work. Even at this level may not work because the shark may have a little bit higher status in the organization chart. You need a champion minimum at this level or even at this level. So when you have situations like this, you need a champion at the appropriate level to be able to protect you. And if we look at this thing again, so if you have sharks and you're swimming in a pond, so people come out in the class and say, Vijay, what do I do if I'm swimming in a pond with many, many sharks? Well, you should have a champion also swimming with you in that pond. And that champion, because that champion is at a fairly higher status in the organization chart, so that champion, when the shark comes to you, the champion is also swimming in the air, and the champion will tell the shark, you better stay away from Kevin. Otherwise, I'm going to get you. So that means the way to do that is you protect yourself from bigger sharks by having a good champion. And whereas the smaller sharks, which I call them baby sharks you can take care by yourself by having ground rules and enforce them. And when I say baby sharks, these are the people who just kind of bother you, trying to just deflect your attention, trying to make you lose your focus in the meetings and so on. So they disrupt the meetings. They really don't participate actively in facilitations or sharing discussions and so on. For those reasons, you should have the ground rules. How are we going to manage the meetings? How people are supposed to be prepared for the meetings before they really come? How are they supposed to make the presentations? How are we going to make decisions? How are we going to give the rewards? Not based upon favoritisms, but they have to be based upon an objective criteria. So when you have all those ground rules, the way I say that is have those ground rules with, remember that, a genuine participation from your team members. And when you have that, you put them on a flip chart, 12 by 16 by 24, get them laminated, put a Velcro, put it in your team room or a war room so that they're all there. So if any of your team members is acting like a shark, like it's a baby shark, you draw their attention to the ground rules, and that is really how you take care of them. Okay? But for the bigger sharks, because they're very political, they are really know how to spin the things around, and they're higher up in the organization also that you could be scared with them. You should have a champion swimming in the same pond. And when I say champion, as I said before, the closest word in PMBOK is a sponsor, and sponsor may or may not be your good champion. So you have to really groom your champion, or if you have a sponsor, you have to kind of groom them to be your champion. And one of the simple ways to do that is what's in it for them. How do you make them look good? What's in it for them? And whenever I have to make the presentation, give them those crisp 5 slides that they can use in their meeting. So if you make them look good, they would look after you. Does that answer?
It does. Thank you very much. Any more questions? Just type them into the chat window or into the questions window. Go ahead, just type them in the chat window or the questions window on the web interface, and we'll be able to.
We still have a few minutes.
One more question. Are there any other kinds of fish that we should think about?
Well, if you took care of sharks, don't become flounders. Have more dolphins as friends.
Okay, another comment.
Maybe anybody can suggest me. When I was actually writing my book on the art of positive politics, I thought it would be interesting to take the sea themes, and that's why I came up with these words of dolphins and flounders.
So there was a question or a comment, not necessarily a question. Somebody said, it seems that sharks always end up at the top of the organization.
They may or may not. They may or may not. But if your organization has sharks mean in a real sense. Some people misinterpret sharks as well. They just may misinterpret somebody who is strict enough and want to get the things done and putting pressure always on schedules, having tight schedules and so on. They may not be sharks. Sometimes you have to respond to be more innovative, creative, and responsive because of the economic situations and so on. As long as you think that their interest is to help you get ahead as well, and as an organization, then they're not like sharks. But if you have an organization, that's what people tell me. They say, Vijay, what do I do then if I'm swimming with too many sharks? But that's the same question coming back to that one. And those sharks are higher up. And then my answer is what I learned from my mom. who went to school only up to grade 4, and I've learned a lot of these things from her about the truth of life, is get out of the pond. Really get out of the pond. And some people say, Vijay, but I like the pond. You know, it's a beautiful skylight there, the beautiful scenery, the murals are all very good on the walls around the pond. I like the pond. So what are they saying? That I don't like the boss, I don't like the senior management, I don't like the work environment, but I like the salary because I need it in order to feed my family and send my kids to education and so on. Well, if that is the case, then you just have to go through. But it is really not a very good idea to stay in life working in an environment whereby you don't feel like going to work every day. That's not nice. So they do end up charged. So I think what you need to look at them is, if they are on the higher up, is what's in it for them. And then at least you don't have to convert them from sharks to politically sensible or anything like that, but at least for you, they would certainly become not favorable to you, but at least they will become very responsive to your interests and your ambitions in the organization and goals and so on, if you always address the question, what's in it for them? Always think it from that point of view. Okay?
Okay,
So
we are at
with him,
yeah, we're approaching the top of the hour. Are there any more questions? This is kind of our last chance. Just type them into the chat window or the questions window. Any questions for Mr. Verma based on his presentation? It looks like we're done. Just remember, everybody, April 7th is our next webinar, Megatrends 2021 PMI's Vision of the Future. We'll see you there. Thank you very much, Vijay.